The Bible talks so much about money. Well, I think money ends up being a window to our soul. It shows what our real motives are. So oftentimes businesses and business leaders today are driven to make a profit at any cost. And they end up with ruined lives and messed up businesses, and everyone connected to it gets messed up. However, the problem isn't money. It's our heart's obsession with it that creates the problem. So when you change the focus and look at purpose beyond profits, it makes you change your focus drastically. Purpose. It's a word that I think should define every one of us in every phase of our lives. In fact, I love to have conversations with people who are on-purpose persons, people who are very intentional, not ones who are, let's just see what happens. They're ones who are continually driven to be on purpose. In the few minutes we have this morning, I'd like to share with you why I try to be an on-purpose person and what an on-purpose person should really look like, and why our business is driven to be an on-purpose company and not just driven by profits. But I need to be really clear on one part of this. Profits are not bad. In fact, if you're going to be a good steward of what God has given you, you need to be profitable. If we aren't, we're actually going against what God really desires, and we're considered to be a poor steward. The problem is, if we only focus on profits, and profits then in reality become our God. See, if you focus on the wrong thing, you'll end up in the wrong place. An on-purpose person not only knows where they're going, they know why. See, an on-purpose person is very intentional. They're on purpose. These individuals stand for one very important principle. It's not all about them. Their belly button is not the center of the universe. The world doesn't revolve around them. If the world revolves around you, you've got a mighty small world. You know, as a CEO, I get to rub with CEOs all over the place. And some of them lead Fortune 100 companies. Some of those individuals are some of the most humble individuals you'll ever want to meet. Some of them are the most arrogant. And I've come to the conclusion it's not the job, it's the person. Some of these leaders make you feel like you're the most important person in the world. Others, they want to let you know who they are, what they do, and why you should respect them. There's really a broad range of personalities. You know, Jesus reminds us of a story in the Bible that's oftentimes referred to as Lazarus and the rich man. In this story, the rich man has everything, and poor Lazarus, he has nothing. Both of them die. Lazarus is taken to be by Abraham's side. The rich man goes to hell. The rich man calls to Lazarus and says, "Come, put some water on my tongue so I can be satisfied." However, Lazarus is prohibited from doing that. So the rich man, the man who had everything, the man who was driven to have all the greatest profits, he now wants Lazarus to go and talk to his family and tell them, "Don't follow in my footsteps." See, he had lived his life for profits, and now he was reaping his reward. Poor old Lazarus, he had nothing in life, but he still lived his life with purpose. His reward was eternal life, filled with comfort and companionship. He made a choice not to live for financial reward. He had purpose beyond profit. So somebody might conclude when they hear this story that, well, in order to have purpose beyond profit, you need to be poor. Well, that's not the case at all. In fact, I could show you a multitude of people, even through the Bible, who are poor and aren't even close to having life with a purpose. So the question is, can a rich man have purpose? Absolutely. But here's one thing you need to know. It's more difficult for a rich person to live life on purpose, but it's not an impossible thing. The Bible tells us of stories of both rich and poor who lived very righteous lives. But one thing we know is that rich people often depend on their riches and not on God. Thus, it's more difficult for them, but not impossible. So what's the difference, and how does somebody really become an on-purpose person? Well, it's really a matter of choice. Does my economic situation control me, or do I control my economic situation? Many people, both rich and poor, allow their economic situation to control them and their attitude. In fact, I contend they choose to allow the economic situation to control them. The Apostle Paul addressed this as he took a look at his own life. He addressed it in the area of contentment. And I would like to read what the Apostle Paul told us as he wrote to the church at Philippi from Philippians chapter 4 in verses 11 to 13. He says this, "I'm not saying this because I'm in need, for I've learned to be content, whatever the circumstances. I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. I can do everything through Christ, who gives me strength." So it really doesn't matter if you have little or you have much. Paul said when you're centered on Christ, he gives you the ability to be content. So let me do something that I find sometimes difficult, but I'm going to ask you to do. I'm going to ask you to look into the mirror of your own life and take a deep look at your own mirror. Do I let circumstances control me, or don't I allow my circumstances to control me? Or my attitude and my actions clearly reveal if I'm an on-purpose person or not? See, my attitude reflects on my view of money and possessions, and to see if I control them or they control me. So when you look into the mirror of your life, can you say with Paul, as he taught us here in Philippians chapter 4, I can do well if I have nothing or if I have a lot. I've learned to live either way because they don't control me. So let me switch gears and talk about what does an on-purpose company look like, and take us back and help us to work through what an on-purpose person can be and how you can learn to have purpose beyond profit. I've had the privilege of the last 20 years to lead our very successful family-owned enterprise. It's an enterprise that was begun by my grandfather nearly 120 years ago. As an enterprise, we've always had the desire to be driven by purpose, not profits. So let me tell you how we set this up and how we carry it out on a daily basis. To better understand it, you have to really closely look at our core values and our mission. See, I believe core values are the bedrock foundation principles that every organization needs to have. You know, and when it comes to core values, most companies have them, but many don't write them down. Why? See, once you memorialize, once you write them down, you move them from a thinking process to an action process, and you want to actually be held accountable for what you do. We have 3 very simple core values: ethics, integrity, and stewardship. But you know, those words, people can have different meanings for them. So we want to know what exactly do we mean when we say those 3 words. Ethics, we define it, I'll do the right thing. Integrity, I'll do what I say. Stewardship, I'll build a foundation for the future. These are our foundation building blocks of which we build our entire company on. From this foundation, we build our mission of what we actually do and why we do the things we do. Our mission is this: we aspire to operate in a way that honors the Lord Jesus Christ, as demonstrated through ethics, integrity, and stewardship. You know what our mission doesn't talk about? It doesn't talk about the products we make. It doesn't talk about the services we provide. It doesn't talk about anything we do. It says why we do what we do. Our goal as a business is to honor the Lord Jesus Christ. And I realize in the 21st century, that is not a politically correct statement. But that's who we are. That's what we do. We're not there just to make a profit, but to operate in a way that honors the Lord Jesus Christ. So what does that actually mean, and how do we actually do this? First, as I said early on, making a profit, a reasonable profit, should be the desire of every business. Again, I believe that's a stewardship principle, and we define stewardship, I'll build a foundation for the future. If you don't make a profit, you won't be in business. But I said it's got to be a reasonable profit. So what's reasonable? Is it in the eye of the beholder? No, I don't think that's how you can measure it. See, reasonable for me is fairly easy to define. What return should you anticipate considering the risk that you're taking? Risk should define what a reasonable return is. The greater the risk, the greater the return you need. Now, the bigger question is, once you earn a profit, what do you do with it? See, this is the real question, and helps all of us take a look at the theme that you've set for this year, purpose beyond profit. For our family business, this is really important. Again, our mission is to honor the Lord Jesus Christ. The Bible's really clear, I think, when it comes to this, that we're to honor God with what the Bible calls our first fruits, the first of everything we make. That implies that any profit we make, you first honor God. As a business, we've adopted the philosophy of tithing our profits. And I realize today a lot of people don't know what tithing is. Tithing is a concept that we read about in the Old Testament of the Bible. And there are many tithes. But the key one is to return the first 10% of everything you make to God. We're committed to tithing our profits. And we tithe 10% of our pre-tax profits every year. In fact, the federal government allows businesses to donate and to deduct for those contributions, up to 10% of your pre-tax profits. But as you look around the United States, most companies don't give a whole lot of money to charity. In fact, the average company gives 2 to 3% to charity. But if you're going to have purpose beyond profit, giving 2% or even 10% may not create real purpose for others. Here's where Christians oftentimes use tithing as a way to meet their obligation to God, and then they can do whatever they want with the rest of the money. I like to ask the question when it comes to this subject: do I give to live, or do I live to give? Do I give to live, or do I live to give? It's a tough question for each one of us to address. But if you're really going to have purpose beyond profit, you need to ask what happens to the rest of the profits. Not just are you intentional about giving just a portion of them back. If you're only concerned about giving a portion back, you clearly have adopted the lifestyle as a company that you give to live. I give 10% to God, and then I can do whatever I want with the rest of it. I don't call that being very intentional. So I think you need to have a real purpose beyond profits. So what else do we do with our profits? We do give our portion of our profits to charitable organizations, and then we give back to our employees. We call them our team members. We're firm believers that our team members actually help us create all the profit that we make as a company. And so we share 1/3 of all of our profits back with our team members. We call that shared success. And in sharing 1/3 of the profits back with our team, we do this because it goes right to the heart of our core values. Our highest core value is ethics. I'll do the right thing. We think sharing 1/3 of the profits back with our team members is the right thing to do. And it goes right back to ethics. So first we give to God. Second, we give to our team. Then we give to ourselves. However, as the owners of the company, we don't get the rest. In fact, the return that we give back to our owners is the smallest amount that we give back. See, we believe stewardship is critical when it comes to profits. And stewardship requires you to reinvest back into your business so you can continue for years to come. Stewardship, I'll build a foundation for the future. Generally, our reinvestment back in the business is at least 50% of our profits. So let's do some quick math. I realize you're all in college and hopefully your math skills are getting there. If you have 100% of the profits, and then you take, that's the amount after tax. Before tax, we give 10% to charities. We give a third to our team members. More than 50% we invest back in the business. You can see that leaves us very little to share with our ownership. But you know something? We think that's okay. You see, we truly believe there's real purpose after profits. So let's go back and take a look as an individual. And see, I need to take a look in that same mirror that you need to look into. I need to look into the mirror of my life. See, my personal core values are very similar to our company's. They were taught to me by my parents, and their parents taught them. My personal mission statement is very similar, and it mirrors our corporate mission statement. My personal mission statement is to excel in business and relationships in order to share practical daily application of a life dedicated to Jesus Christ. Again, not a politically correct personal mission statement, but that's who I am. As the CEO of our family business, I shouldn't be living in a silo and do things differently as an individual than we do as a business. I believe both of them reflects who we are. Saying that, I think it leads to another very important thing as we look at purpose beyond profits. So it's easy to look at profits and only look at the financial side. I think there's so much more to life than just finances. And I believe the Bible would ask us to be accountable in two other key areas. And I think God will hold each of us accountable in these areas, to our time and our skills. True purpose beyond profits must include our finances or our assets. It needs to include our time, and it needs to include our God-given skills. You know, it's a lot easier to actually give money than it is to give time or skills. However, if we're really truly to have purpose, we need to give all three. Both as a company and as an individual, I believe giving of time is really important and may actually cost you a lot more than just giving finances. Giving time to all those in need is vital if lives are going to be changed. And here's something that's really neat. When you give of your time, you get the chance to use your God-given skills at the same time. Time is like finances. It does have its limitation in how much you can give, and the need is far greater than the amount you have to give. But here's one other critical factor that you need to learn, and that is discernment. Each of us need discernment on where and when to give, and then how to give. If our lives are going to have real purpose, we need to really be intentional. Intentional in giving our finances, intentional in giving our time, intentional in giving our God-given skills to be used in places where God desires. Being very intentional in this area is extremely critical. If you aren't intentional, you soon will be going in a direction that either becomes very legalistic or non-meaningful. You do it because you must, not because you want to. So let me conclude by talking about what I really believe the real person or company needs to be if you're going to be driven by purpose beyond profit. I call it that lifestyle that you live to give. I've already talked about giving to live, where you do things because you feel obligated. I want to share what it looks like when you live to give. Simply, it means that you're always looking for opportunities and areas where you can give of your finances or your assets or your time or your skills to others. You know, coming here to Messiah today is part of my lifestyle. See, I really like to live to give. When I was asked if I could come and spend a day here with you, it gave me another opportunity to give what God has given me. The college could have easily asked, Phil, could you write a check? And they oftentimes do. But instead, they asked, could I come and invest a day with you to share my God-given skills? It's a very different question, but one that's really fairly easy to answer. But let me pause just for a moment and reflect on something I just said, and I don't know if you caught the difference. See, when I was asked to come here, could I come here and invest a day? Most times, most of us would look and say, well, could you spend a day here with us? See, spending is oftentimes done in a way where you expect no return. When you invest in something, you look for a return, and you look how you're going to get a return. May I challenge you, when you go to class today, that you don't just spend time in class, but you see it as a real investment. See, if you're going to be living a life on purpose, everything you do, you're investing in. I'm sure your professors would much rather see you investing time in class than just spending time. See, God has allowed me to have a very unique position as the leader of our successful family business. This position offers me a platform to share all that we do. And I could look at this as both an opportunity or an obligation. And I look at it in both ways. See, I believe I do have an obligation to avail myself to every opportunity that God places on my path. But now God asks me to do something. Use discernment. See, discernment is really tough. It makes you choose between two good things and choose the best. See, I really believe being here today is the right thing for me to do. Yes, my business plate is absolutely packed full. But to me today, the place for me to be is here. So let me tell you how I share this entire subject that's critical to our business and not just to me personally. See, it's easier for me to take a look individually as we do it, but how does our business do this? See, our business, we really consider to be God's business. And we're in an industry that's extremely tough and highly competitive. Our belief is that we should have an abundant mindset, sharing what God has given us and not a scarcity mindset. I don't know if you understand the difference between an abundant mindset and a scarcity mindset. An abundant mindset lets you look out and see all the great opportunities that are out there. And you look at the opportunities, there's enough for everybody. A scarcity mindset says there's only so many opportunities, so you better grab all that you can, because if you don't get them, you won't have any. They're really opposite mindsets. So God has allowed us as a company to use the abundant gifts He's given us. He's blessed us in many ways. He's blessed us financially. He's blessed us in many other ways. He's given us some very talented teammates. He's blessed us with time. He's blessed us with skills. And He has allowed us to use them beyond our own company. Let me give you several examples. A few years ago, one of our main local competitors had a major problem caused by something they had no control over. Their entire company was flooded. It was nearly all underwater. We sent the majority of our maintenance crew to their plant to get them up and running. It took our crew a full month to get them up and running and get them back on their feet. And we didn't or wouldn't take a penny for the work that we did. See, we did it because an abundant mindset says there's plenty of business for both of us, and the right thing for us to do is to help somebody else, even though a direct competitor, when they're in need. You know, when the job was finished, we went right back in the marketplace, and they were battling us on a competitive basis every day in and day out. But it was the right thing for us to do. Another thing happened just a few years ago also. The livestock market in the United States for hogs and for our farmers just totally fell apart. Many of our farmers were in deep trouble as they went through this. Some of those farmers who were sending us thousands of animals per week were losing $50 for every animal they sent to us. And in fact, it was not sustainable for them. In just weeks, they would move into bankruptcy. Even though the market price was out of their control, it was what it was. We decided not to pay the same as all of our competitors, but to pay nearly triple what the market was in order to help our farmers. We paid our farmers more than $3 million per week over and above what the market was out there. Why? Because ethics says you do the right thing. Let me give you one more other example. We had a potential customer, not an existing customer, that was having a real problem. And they were using a product that we make, but not our product, and putting it into a product they sell. Now, remember, this is not one of our customers. It's a potential customer. And so we went and we asked the same question we ask most of our customers. How can we help you? And they told us they had a real problem. They had a problem putting this product into their product. And we said, would you let us work on it and see if we can fix this problem for you? So we took our very talented engineering team, our very talented fabrication team, and our maintenance team, and we went to their plant. And we looked at the problem, and we built a machine to correct their problem. And then we gave them that machine. And they weren't even our customer. But they had a problem, and we had a potential solution. See, in these three examples, the flood, the market crash, and a company that had a production problem, we used our time. We used our skills. We even used our financial resources to help others. We do this as a way to carry out our mission and our core values. It allows us to have purpose beyond our profits. So let's go back and look at that mirror. How are you at sharing your time? How are you at sharing your God-given skills? How are you at sharing your finances? You say, oh, come on, Phil. We're college students. What do you expect? We don't have any time. And that's why we're here at Messiah, to get some skills. And in case you don't know it, college is pretty expensive, and we don't have the finances. But here's one thing that I know, how God looks at it. See, God says, I want you to use what you have. And each of you have time. And each of you have been here, even maybe if you've been only here a few weeks. You've started to earn skills, and you've had skills. And I'll tell you this, I know enough about college kids that you all have a little bit of spare finances. See, and God's not going to ask you to do anything He's not going to ask me to do. See, one day, each one of us will stand before God Himself. And He's going to ask us a question. What did you do with what I gave you? So as you look in the mirror of your life, how are you using the time God has given you? How are you using the finances? How are you using the God-given skills? So how do you answer that question even today? See, I want to challenge you. I know you've got a lot of books to read, but I want to challenge you to potentially pick up 2 books that really can help you in this area. If you really want to be an on-purpose person, Andy Stanley, maybe some of you have heard of Andy. He's a contemporary pastor in the Atlanta area. His newest book is written out, talks a lot about finances. It says, How to Be Rich. It's a real easy read. See, the bottom line is this is, what do you do with what you have? And Andy challenges this, brand new book that's out. But one that's been out for about 10 years, and one that I would encourage every college student to read. And it's called The Best Question Ever. And here's the best question that Andy talks about. What's the wise thing to do? What's the wise thing to do when it comes to my time? What's the wise thing to do when it comes to my finances? What's the wise thing to do when it comes to sexual purity? What's the wise thing to do when I take a look at my God-given skills and how do I use them? 2 really easy books. And I guarantee you they're a lot thinner than most of your textbooks. And all of you got some spare time. They don't cost much. You can pick them up online. You can read them with your, if you want to read them electronically, you can do it either way. But I challenge you to read these. And challenge you today to take the challenge I've done and to be an on-purpose person. Now, we still have a few minutes here left because I know chapel doesn't stop for about another 7 or 10 minutes. How about if we take some questions that you might have on being an on-purpose person?
Do you find that having a core value of God and Jesus in your business can sometimes get in the way of doing business with other companies that might not have that?
Great question. Does having our mission statement of having Jesus Christ or God in our business get in the way? The answer is absolutely no. And I will tell you, it's surprising. Let me qualify that. It does get it away in some ways. In some of the businesses we deal with, they call themselves Christian businesses, and I put that in quotes. They're oftentimes very critical of our mission statement. But I will tell you this, I have never had one non-Christian or secular company ever question it. In fact, they've oftentimes come and said, that's a unique mission statement. Why do you have that? And even before that, I'm really glad you put it out there because I know who I'm dealing with. Because I know you want to really be held to a very high standard, or you wouldn't put it out there because it's not politically correct. So in reality, it opens the doors to really share why we do what we do. Thanks. How about another question?
Has it been hard for you to stay grounded? Like when you see other CEOs making a lot of money and just spending their money however they want, has it been hard for you to stay grounded in your values?
It's really tempted when you have real tough, high standards to say, why don't I just do like others do? But here's the thing that drives me, and this is what keeps me grounded. See, I know that at the end of my life, I'm going to need to give an account. And I'm going to need to give an account to God to how I treated our customers, how I treated our vendors, how I treated our team members, how I treated our community, how I treated the environment, how I even treated the animals that we raise and actually harvest for human consumption. I'm going to need to give an account. And that's one of the things that drives me every day to not slip off and say, let me just be like others. Because, again, it would take everything I do and invalidate everything I've stood for in my life. So I need to be grounded. And one of the things that really helps me is to have people hold me accountable and ask me, Phil, are you really doing what you say you're doing? That's really, really important. And I really challenge each one of you. Do you have somebody hold you accountable to what you have set in your life? Great question.
It seems pretty manageable to do and take the steps that you have laid in front of you when you're in the green, but the company is not doing so well, and perhaps you're below the line. How do you still instill the values to the company?
Well, if you go back to something that Paul said, and this is really, really, really important. He said this, I've learned to do this, whether it's bad times or good times. It's whether I'm not making it or I am making it. See, and I think actually the times, and I don't know about you, the times that I learn best in my life is when I'm in deep water. Because when I'm in deep water, I really lean heavily on God. When we're going through a time when profits are really great, everything in business is going great, I can coast. And so even when things are not going good, we look and say, and here's what's really important. Do our values mean anything in the bad times? Am I going to compromise on doing what's right? Am I going to go back on my promises? Am I going to only think about today and not tomorrow? And so when you have that fine line sitting in front of you, you say, this is what I promised to do. And I'm promising it to our team members. I'm promising it to my spouse. I'm promising it to all of our shareholders. I'm promising it to myself, but most importantly, I'm promising it to God. And am I going to stay and do what I need to do, even in the tough times? That's what it gets down to. I think we have time for one last question if you have one.
whenever you're self-reflecting to be a more personal person, I think it's hard in these early ages, early 20-somethings, to self-reflect. What do you find is the best way to self-reflect on your God-given gifts?
That's a great question, because all of you are going to be faced with that as you graduate. You have some God-given gifts, and hopefully you're here at Messiah getting them tuned and trained so you can go for the rest of your life. It's always good to have somebody who really knows you best, who knows what your skills are. And sometimes you can take instruments to find out what those real skills are. And I would tell you this, we get a lot of young leaders within our company. And I take them through a lot of leadership courses. And it's surprising that if they're oftentimes driven to do things that other people think they're really good at, instead of what God has made them skilled at. And oftentimes you're driven towards what's the income stream, not what has God blessed you with. And so you need to find somebody you can really hold you accountable and say, here's what I really believe my God-given skills are. Am I using them to the best of my ability? And that's that tough look in the mirror. Because, here's the thing that's really tough. Your God-given skills may drive you to be in a vocation that doesn't pay a lot. And see, so often times today, success is based on how much you're paid. But that's not God's measurement tool. See, God has said this, even if you get into a vocation that He's called you to, where you may have low income, there's another promise He gives us. I will supply your needs. 1 Timothy chapter 6, He tells you, I'll supply everything you need, not what you want. So if God's called you there, that's the best place you can be. And use your God-given skills where He's called you to be. Maybe not where your parents want you to be, maybe not where your friends want to be, maybe not where the income is, but where does God want you? Thank you very much for allowing me to share with you this morning.